Good evening, everyone.
Kavod Taraf, how are you?
Hashem, thank you. And so last time we did Vav, we're going to go to Zayin. Okay, so it says here, "Ve'im hu safek im ba michutz tchum, im lav Rashi mutar v'divrei hagonim asur." So he says that, what about if it's a doubt whether it came from outside the boundary or not? So he says, according to Rashi, that's allowed. According to the Gonim, he says not allowed. So it says regarding that, the Bet Yosef, Pek Shoel Kuf Nun Aleph, it says over there in the Gemara, in Bava Batra. I'm sorry, it's not Bava Batra, it's Shabbat. Gemara Shabbat. So, right. עלה דמתניתין דגוי שהביא חלילין לא יספוט בהם ישראל, אלא אם כן באו במקום קרוב אמרינן בגמרא. So he says, right, that he brings a case over here, which we already mentioned one time, which is that the Goyim, they brought on Shabbat, these flutes. So Gemara says if they brought these flutes, don't eulogize with them, right? The Jews should not eulogize with them. Elaim ken ba mimakom karov, unless it came from a close by place, right? In other words, they were inside the boundary. Amrina the Gemara. So we say in Gemara, my makom karov. What does that mean? Right, places which is close by. Makom karov mamash. So Rab says it's like really close by. Ushmuel Amar Chayshinan Shema Chutz Lechoma Lanu. Shmuel says we're concerned that maybe they were outside the walls of the city, so they were very close. So he's lenient about it. So we paskin like Shmuel, right? Who's lenient, as we said. Whereas Rashi explains the Shmuel lekula lomar daf al pi shelo nichnasu le'ir ad haboker choshishin shema b'ba'od yom ba'u letoch hatchum velanu b'layla chutz lechoma. So he explains, right, that why are we lenient here? What's the thing? The thing is that, like Shmuel said, that we're concerned that maybe, perhaps, these people who came on Shabbat with their flutes, they actually had it already outside the walls before Shabbat. So they slept over there, but they spent the night there outside there. So, in other words, there's no prohibition if that's the case. So, since that's the case, so what we do is we can use it. You can be lenient. Okay. But the Geonim said not like that, right? But Shmuel is coming here to be stringent, not to be lenient. But to say that even though they came in the morning, Ashkem, right, early in the morning, Asur was forbidden. The Chayshina and Shima Belayla Hevium, because we're concerned that maybe they brought them at night. Rachok, right, far away. Velanu Chutz Techoma, and they slept outside the walls there. ולפי דבריהם, כל אחד מספק עלן. So he says, right, according to the Geonim, wherever there's a doubt, hi miuta talina lechumra, we go stringent here. Okay, so right, we have Rashi on one side, we have the Geonim on the other side. Doesn't say, by the way, which Geonim they were, or whatever, because there was actually many of them. There was many Geonim. Okay, whatever, but anyway, right, it is what it is. So now he brings some other opinions, right, which is the Bedata Rif Kedata Geonim. So he says the Rif holds like the Geonim. Oh. So he's stringent, right? The Chem Dat Rambam, most of the Rambam, right? So what do you see from there, right? That most of the big rabbis are stringent here. So Rashi pretty much is left alone, right? In his own little bubble there, right? He doesn't have nobody. He doesn't have anybody supporting him. Okay. So then he goes on. The Katav Aran beperek Shoel. So says the Ran deikal medak. There is here right a deduction to make. Al divrei Rashi. Regarding Rashi, Midyamar Papa Goy Shevi Doron. Since Rapapa said that a goy who brings a gift, Imam Yesh b'mino b'mechubar, or so if it's something which can be attached to the ground, Asur, it's forbidden. It's going to be forbidden until the night. And also the time it takes to do labor. So this is there. We can, we could have assumed, perhaps, right, that they were picked before Yom Tov. Nevertheless, it's forbidden, he says. Tiretz Rabbeinu Yonah. So this Rabbeinu Yonah, he answers the chol sheyesh b'mino b'mechubar. So in the case where you have something, which is can be attached to the ground, darkan shel bnei adam lilkot oto b'yom. Oh, look what he says, right? So the way of people, the general way is to pick these things during that day. So what does that mean? It's not from last night. It's from today. Since most people do like that, so that's why we can't be lenient. That's what he says. So now you understand, right? Because otherwise there would have been a question here, which is that what? That this is since this is a rabbinical issue, and it's doubtful. We should have been lenient, right? So we should have all go like Rashi. So the question is then, why is Rashi left alone, right, without anybody to support him? So the answer is because here, on the other hand, right, besides the fact that it's doubtful, but the majority of people, that's the way they do it. They do it. They pick it in the daytime, that actual same day. So that's the reason why we're stringent here. We go according to the majority. Okay, good. So it says, according to this, if it's a doubt, as we said, right, whether it was picked today or it was trapped today, Asurim lemotzi Shabbat, it's going to be forbidden, right, until Shabbat goes out, or Motzi Yom Tov, or Yom Tov, whatever it may be, right? Ad Kadesh Yasu, and then also now we have to wait the time that it takes to do the labor. Kelu Vadayin Katu Nitzod b'Shabbat. So it's as if it was for sure done on Shabbat, right? Even though we're not sure about that, but the majority, right? That's the thing, So therefore, we go stringent over here. Okay, good. Then he goes on. Rashi says, even according to Rashi, he says, that he explains, right, that we go lenient. So what does that mean? He explains the Gemara that is talking about that these merchants, right, were outside the city, right next to the wall. So they were already there, so there's no problem. Nevertheless, he says, the Kula Kamar, so that was like leniency according to Rashi. So we said, right, that Samag argues with this. Right, so says the Bet Yosef. What's the halacha, right? Well, you can guess, right? Probably, right? I already led you on to the right path there. So, right, says Bet Yosef. Here we're going to paskin, obviously, like the Geonim, right? Why is that? Because they're the majority, right? Geonim, Rif, Rambam, right? As we said, and now we see also the Samag. So he says they're the majority against Rashi, and also he says they're Gedolim. They're big people. Oh, well, that we already knew, right? Okay, well, they're big people. Okay, well, they're big. That's the way it is. Okay, good. By the way, just to give you a little bit icing on the cake over here, right? What do we see from here? That making a majority in itself is not really good enough. Because there could be that this majority that you have there, is like not the biggest rabbis in the world. So they don't equal, the level of the big rabbis, So then if they're the majority, that doesn't really help you much. So that's why it tells you, right, that also, we don't only go by the quantity, we go also like the quality. So what does that mean? The bigger rabbis have more weight than the little guys. That's the way it is. The way it goes. Okay, right. So you see how the Bet Yosef teaches you how to paskin halacha, right? He's a good trainer, very good trainer. All right, that's good. So we're done with that. So let's go to Shulchan Aruch. Wait a second. There's one more piece over here. Sorry, I didn't catch that. One more piece. Katav Rashba, says the Rashba here. Oh, so says the Rashba, even according to the Gonim, right, who are stringent. So he says we're only going to be stringent in a case where regarding a goy who doesn't live in that town with him. Interesting. So in other words, he's telling you that if the goy lives in your town, you can be lenient. You see why that is? You get the point? Okay, I'll tell you. So the reason is because, since the goy lives in your town, so, the chances are more that he didn't bring that from far away. The chances are that, he was local, he did a local job there. That's the reason why. Okay, so then he continues here. Right? That's what it says in the Ran also, right? And Pek and Sadin. So he also seems to agree with the Rashba. That's what it says on Magid. Pek Bet Milchot Yom Tov. Also Samak. Okay, so you have like several rabbis, right, who point that out, that issue. Interesting. Okay. So then he goes on. Katav Mordechai Beshpek and Sadin. Says the Mordechai. Amar Yuda. Amar Shemuel. Right. These rabbis said halacha ke Rabbi Yoshua. So they said halacha is like Rabbi Yoshua. Mashma de Shmuel itle muktzeh. So that implies that Shmuel holds, by the wide definition of muktzeh. Afilu b'safek mukhan, even if it's like doubtfully prepared that day. Katav Abi Ezri, it says Abi Ezri, Afagab de b'safek mukhan machmirin. So even though regarding doubtful things which are prepared that day, we're stringent. Hainu mishum de muksehu. That's because he says it's mukseh. Like it says over there in this chapter, in Shabbat, Kuf Chavdal Amud Bet. V'gama archaka le'isur v'lo le'akel. So he says, right, that I'm not exactly sure what he means by harchaka. That the word harchaka means like far away. So he says it's far away to forbid and not to be lenient. Okay, I get it. I get the point. I had to think about that for a second. And so, what does that mean, far away? What is that? What is that? And so, what he's trying to say is like this, right? That let me just read on a little bit, 1 second. But im en safek muktzeh, ela safek techumin. But it says if the doubt is not regarding muktzeh, but it's about right boundaries. Oh, כגון שיש לגוי המביא דורון שני בתים באחד בתוך התחום. For instance, he says when a goy has right brings the gift, and the distance is like 2 houses. And one of them is inside the boundary. Shara, it's allowed. It's afilu lemisha ba bishvilo, even for the person that it was bought for him. The gasina pek misha sheotziu. So he says because we're right. It says over there in this perek mem hey amud bet gabe yesh techumin lemala miasara, regarding the issue of if there's right if there's boundaries above 10 tefachim off the ground. Safek techumin derabanan deakel. So he says since it's doubtful, we go lenient. Because it's only rabbinical. So it's even though it's something which is going to be permitted, in the future, so therefore we should be stringent on that. So it doesn't resemble the issue of the egg. That Rav Asher said, the in the first perk of Betzah. Leolam safek yom tov safek yom chol. They were not sure, right, whether it was on a weekday or yom tov. So he says, because over there, when you're going to have to put it on its presumptive state. So he says that right. So in other words, the presumptive state is that it didn't come to the world yet. He wasn't around. Right. Also regarding doubtful trapping, he says, right, which is not trapped. So he says, not so when it comes to the issue of doubtful boundaries. So this rabbi, right, is trying to say something interesting here, that it depends on what issue the doubt, is regarding. There are certain things in the doubts that we go stringent, he says, and certain things that we go lenient with doubts. Okay, interesting. Let's look at the Shulchan Aruch here. This rabbi didn't really, clearly state his opinion here so well. So I doubt that this is the halacha, but let's see in the Shulchan Aruch what he says here. Okay.
Kavod which rabbi said this? The types of doubt? I'm sorry.
The
Do you
he.
remember? Excuse me, Mordechai? Okay, thank you.
Yes. So let's see where we are here. All right, so this one we already did. Let's go to the next one. So it says here, im hu safek im bao michutz hatchum, right? As we said, right? When there's a doubt whether this item came from outside the boundary, im hu eno yudi hasharui imo be'ir. So it really depends on if this goy lives in that city or not, right? As the Rashba said. Perot mitzuim be'ir mutar. And also, these are fruits that you can find in the city. So when that's the case, he says, it's allowed because then we can safely assume, right, that this was brought from inside the boundary. So this is exactly what we saw from the Rashba, right, and some more rabbis who agreed with that. But if not so, meaning what? That the goy doesn't live in that town. So then we go stringent, like who? Like the Geonim, right? And the Rif and the Rambam, they go like that, and not like Rashi, right? Who's the minority. So there you go, right? Okay, very good. So we'll go on, I guess. If you have any questions, let me know. So now we're going to Chet, I think. We just did Zayin. Right. Okay. So let's go to Chet. What does it say here? בדבר שאין במינו ממחובר, שהובא לישראל ביום טוב ראשון, של ראש השנה, מותר בשני, right? So the Torah here is lenient, right? That if it's something which, that it can be attached to the ground, and it was bought for the Jew on Yom Tov, right? So he says it was on the first day of Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah. So there, right, says the Torah that it's going to be allowed to use it the next day, right, the second day of Yom Tov. So in other words, according to this, we don't say, right, this is like one long day. Rosh Hashanah is like one long day. Here we don't say that. Why is that, by the way? um, because let's see. I'm not sure about that. Let's see the tour inside. Better to do it that way. Right, but interesting thing is that here the Tur, right? Let me just compare this to the Bet Yosef because I see a different language here. So let's just make sure we got it right. Right. So yeah, looks like I didn't read it right the first time. Uh, so what he's saying over here is that we're talking about something which is not attached to the ground, right? Now it makes more sense. So like we talked about yesterday, right? The package of cheese, right? Whatever it is, right? Not attached to the ground. So there, if it was brought on Rosh Hashanah, the first day, you can use it the next day, right? And here we don't say, right, it's one long day. Why is that? Because, it's only a doubt, whether it was brought from, right? It's a doubt regarding boundaries, So as we said, we're not so stringent with boundaries like we are when it comes to, detaching something from the ground, right? Or, trapping. Why is that? Because as we said, right, boundaries are from the rabbis. So we're more lenient with that. So now it fits in well, the whole idea. Okay, so right says here the Bet Yosef, Kakatav Aran bepek en sadin, right? That's what it says in the Ran. B'shem Chachmei Lunil, right? From the rabbis of Lunil. Rabbi Pish Katav al Divrem, even though he wrote regarding them on their words, Vani Omer Kama Rab Guvraihu de Sharuhachi. So he said right, that wow, these are like very brave rabbis, that they're able to be lenient here. Very brave. It's the land of the brave, as they say, right? The Harosh Katav Divrei Chachmei Nunil Stam Repsak Halacha. So the Rosh brings it right for halacha, this opinion. Okay. The Gamar Rav Magid, also Rav Magid Katav Besof Perk Aleph Divrei Chachmei Nunil. Also he wrote that line. The Katav Be'orchot Chaim, right? That's what it says in Orchot Chaim. Katav Tehu Adin the Shabbat B'Yom Tov. So he says the same thing also applies on Shabbat and Yom Tov. What does that mean? That if you have 2 days, right, consecutive, one is Yom Tov, one is Shabbat, same would apply. So what does that mean? It would be allowed the next day. Just like the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So when it comes to boundaries, we're not so stringent, like we were regarding the other things. As we said, right? Tchumin. Okay, good. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch. עושה שולחן ערוך, דבר שאין במינו מחובר שהובא לישראל ביום טוב ראשון של ראש השנה, מותר לשני, right? So, again, right, something which is not attached to the ground, says the Shulchan Aruch, that if it was brought for the Jew on the first day of Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah, nevertheless, it's going to be permitted the next day. Same thing applies, he says, also regarding Shabbat and Yom Tov, right? One after the other. Okay, now let me give you a trick question over here, right? I'm going to quiz you a little bit from what we did yesterday. Here's a trick question. So why don't we wait here the time that it takes to do the labor? You see, right? They don't say that you have to wait like that.
You mean for when you're allowed the second day of Yom Tov?
Right.
Because it's doubtful. It's either it was the first day or it wasn't.
Right. So, yeah, okay. But, we said, right, regarding this doubt, we go stringent. And so then why don't we also wait the time that it takes to do the labor?
Does the product exist within the city boundaries, or
Sorry, what was it again?
does the item
So obviously here we're talking about something which is not, right? Because otherwise we would allow it altogether. So then what's the story?
not inside the city boundaries?
Yeah, if it was that, then it would be allowed even the same day.
Uh,
You know what I mean? If it was like that. So then what's the story over here? Right. So the answer is, if you were paying very attentively, listening attentively yesterday, you would have picked it up. So right, okay, right. We'll do the best we can. So anyway, right, the reason is because, as we said, right, boundaries are from the rabbis, you know. So therefore, we're not really so stringent to say, oh, you got to wait to do the labor. You know, what labor? There was no labor here. This is from the rabbis. Give me a break, right? Come on. You got it? Okay. So, okay, that's good. So, I guess we can go to the next one. We started a little bit late, so I'll go a little bit further so we can make up some time. I don't want to shortchange anybody, God forbid, if you know what I mean. All right. So, let's go back there. Right. So it says here, Bet Yosef, Katava Kolbo, he says, right? This rabbi writes, אפשר לומר דווקא גוי שהביא דורון לישראל. Right? יש לגזור שמא יאמר לא, לך והבא לי, אבל ישראל ששלח דורון חברו על ידי גוי, oh. So he tries to make some differentiation here, right? This rabbi. He says that these things that which we discussed, currently, right, or whatever, right? We're talking about the goy is bringing for the Jew. Okay. So there we said, right, that there's a reason to decree not to use things like this, because then we're concerned that the Jew will tell the goy to do it, for himself. So, but he says there's also another variation of this, where we can be lenient more. What does that mean? So he says we're talking about a case where a Jew sent a gift for a Jew, but he sent it by a goy, right? By way of a goy. The courier was a goy. So he says in that case, we're not really concerned about that. So it says like this, right? So he says, for instance, he gave it to him like before Yom Tov, this item, right? So what happened, right? In other words, this Jew wanted this item delivered before Yom Tov, right? But what happened was the goy, right, got lazy a little bit, right? Let's say, he went into a bar, right, started drinking a little bit, started having some cocktails, you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, right, he lost track of time. And, he delivered it on Yom Tov. But the Jew didn't want that. He wasn't interested in that. But the goy got held up somewhere. By the way, that's the reason why we started late tonight. Why was that? Because I had a Costco order, and it was supposed to come half hour before, but he got held up somewhere, this guy. So so he brought it late, so that's why we started late. What can you do, right? That's the way it goes.
But Kavod Harav, this was not the intention.
Right, right. The Jew doesn't want that.
In both cases.
He didn't want that, but the problem is the goy is bringing it now for the Jew. That's the bottom line, right? So now the question is, right? Can the Jew accept that, or right? What's the story there? So okay, so let's see what he says, right? Right? He says there was actually a case like this, this really happened. והסכימו החכמים ז"ל להתירו אפילו למי שבא בשבילו. So, right, it looks like the rabbis had like a discussion about this case, right? So, right, what did they say, the rabbis? They said, yeah, okay, we can allow that. Right? In other words, the Jew can accept the gift on Yom Tov. He doesn't have to wait till tomorrow. Okay. So, right, we already gave the reason why that is, because there's no concern here about the concern that we usually have with these cases. So, even for the Jew that was bought for him, as we said, right, the reason is because we're not concerned that he's going to tell the goy next time, whatever, right? Yeah, bring me something, whatever, right? So he's going to tell him to do it on Yom Tov. Right? So why aren't we concerned about that here? Because he won't listen to him, right? What does that mean? Since it was sent by the Jew, right? So obviously this is not going to happen with this case. Okay, interesting, whatever, right? There's a lot to think about when it comes to this kind of things. Okay. שלא ישמע לו, עד כאן, וכך כתוב רשב"א, so the Rashba says also, oh, interesting, right? שאלת שאלת ישראל שגר לחברו, על ידי גוי, right? So again, right, the Rashba has a similar case here, right, where, it was sent by a Jew, but the courier was a goy. So he sent him some fruits, right, before Yom Tov, she'en b'minam mechubar, and they're not attached, whatever. So, lekarka v'nitakev hagoy be'evian b'yom tov. So what happened, right? The goy, he went inside the pub, right, to drink, right? Got delayed, and all of a sudden lost track of time. So he brings it on Yom Tov. Oh boy, right? Oh boy. So, okay, so what happened? So now the question is, right, are they allowed or not, right? The Rashba is asking the same question. Somebody's asking him this question, right? So even if it was bought for him, so answers the Rashba, tshuva, mistabrali shemutar. So the Rashba says the same thing, right? It seems like to me that it's allowed to use this, right? Even not on that same day. Right? Toch daled amot. Right? But he only allows to use it within 4 amot. In other words, you can't move it around too much. By the way, what do I care if you move it around too much? What does that bother you? Anybody know why that is? So the answer is because there's a rule like this, when it comes to boundaries, that when something is brought from outside the boundary, you're not allowed to move it around, more than that. So since we're concerned, right, that this thing came out from outside the boundary, whatever, so, that's why we don't move it around. So more than 4 amot. אפילו לבוא לחברו על ידי גוי פירות, I'm sorry, אפילו לבוא בשבילו כל שכן לאחרים, all, right, even the one that was brought for him, all more so for others, he says, שהרי אין הגוי מביא בשלו, כדי שנגזור שמא יאמר אבלי. So here, right, it says the same reason, that there's no reason here to prohibit this. There's no concern, because he won't come to tell the goy anything, to do it next time. So, but the Rashba, is pretty much the same as what we saw before. The only difference seems to be, as we said, right, the Rashba says, don't move it around too much, more than 4 amot, right? Okay, interesting. So that's the end of the chapter. Okay, good. So I guess we can do Shulchan Aruch and finish off this chapter. So says Shulchan Aruch here, Yisrael sheshiget doron lechavero al yedei eno Yehudi me'erev Yom Tov. Right, as we said, right, the gift was sent by a Jew, but the courier is a goy. So what happens over there, right? But he sent this before Yom Tov. He didn't want this to be delivered, on Yom Tov itself. That wasn't his intention, By the way, this reminds me. I get asked a lot of times, from people this question, which is that, when you order like something from Amazon, or some other, right, company like that, that delivers whatever, and right, these internet things, online, right, shopping. So, the question is always asked, what about, if Amazon brings it on Shabbat? What about if they bring it on Yom Tov? So, what I always tell them is like this: you're not allowed to tell them to bring it on Yom Tov. Right? As we said over here, same thing, right? You should tell them, bring it, the day before or the day after, right? But not on Yom Tov itself. Right, but sometimes, what happens, right? Amazon, gets a little bit lazy, right? So, they bring it the day after. Right? They send you a letter, we apologize, right? Oh, wait.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So is there anything to like the whole, like the reasonable expectation that it would potentially arrive? Like, I don't know, you have next day shipping and you order something Friday morning. Is that?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it's supposed to come next day, then you got a problem, obviously.
Okay, so you have to watch out for that kind of thing too. It's not just because I
Yeah,
ordered
because it's the same thing as ordering it on Shabbat, it's really the same thing.
even if you're gonna like leave it at your, front desk or whatever. Does that
Yeah,
matter?
sure. Same thing. They're bringing it for you, that's the thing, right?
Okay, thank you.
They could be bringing that from out of town, you know what I mean? From Seattle, Washington, right? Whatever, right? You never know where it's coming from. That's the thing, right? So okay. So as we said, right? But if, let's say, right, Amazon, they bought it late or they bought it early, but you didn't order it on that day, so then you can take it. It's no problem, because you didn't ask them for that. That's what we're saying. So yeah, okay, good. And by the way, the thing is also that like when it comes to like online delivery like that, they're not only doing it for you, right? They have like a route that they do, right? And they deliver to a lot of people. So it's not only for you, But anyway, if you're asking them to do it, right? So then it's already a problem. So therefore, you got to avoid that. But okay. But anyway, right? As we said, מותר אפילו מישהו no? אבל אסור, right? So he says, לכל ישראל לטלטלם מחוץ ל400. So he passes like the Rashba over here, right? That what? That don't carry it more than 4 amot. Right? Or he says, חוץ לעיר המוקפת חומה, או חוץ למבצר שידוע שהוקף חומת לדירה. So in other words, the point is like this, right? When you're where you are in an enclosed area, enclosure, so you can carry it in that whole enclosure, So that would probably mean, right, your house, like is one enclosure, so you can carry it anywhere in your house. It's like 4 amot. It's the same thing. So when we say 4 amot, what are we talking about? We're talking about when it's outdoors, outside, right? That's a different story. But when it comes to right inside, right, indoors, so then you can carry it in the whole house, whatever it is, right, the whole building. It's like one enclosure. That's the idea. So that could even apply, he says, to a city, which is like walled. In those days they had walled cities, right? So it's all enclosed, so you can carry it anywhere in that city. Okay, interesting. Oh, chutz me'ir lekofet b'choma, or chutz me'bzar adishut lekofet b'choma. And so then he says the Rama, Haga, he brings the Rama here, which is that דווקא שהיה דעתו מאתמול, דלת באיסור מוקצה. So he says that's only if his intention was from yesterday, so then there's no prohibition of muktzah there. אבל אם היה דעתו מאתמול, but if he already intended this from yesterday, אף אגב דלת באיסור תחומין, even though there's no prohibition of boundaries over here, אסור משום מוקצה, but it says forbidden because of מוקצה. לכל של ישראל צריך הכנה מבעוד יום. So he says, what does that mean? That since it belongs to a Jew, this item, right? Who was the one who sent it, right? It wasn't Amazon, right? Over here. We're talking about a Jew. Right? So since it belongs to a Jew, it has a din of muksa there. That's what he's trying to say, right? So therefore, he says it would be forbidden even for somebody that it wasn't bought for him. So let's read that one more time, okay? Let's just get that straight. It's an important halacha, you know. As you can see, it's quite practical. In our age of our age of Amazon that we live in today. Right, so what does it say here? One more time, right? As we said, this is a little bit different than the Amazon, you know, because the sender is a Jew, right? That's the only difference. As we said. So he says here that if as we said, right, it was sent by a Jew, and he told the goy, right, bring it before Yom Tov, right? Don't bring it on Yom Tov. But the goy got delayed. He brought it on Yom Tov, right? So what do we do there? Right? So it says here, Shulchan Aruch, you can use that item. Because there's no concern over here, you know, that you're going to tell the goy to do something else, right? But he says, right, as we said, that you cannot carry it outside of 4 amot, right? But as we said, right, if you're inside an enclosure, it's okay. So then comes the Rama and says something interesting. Right? So he says, right, that only applies when, right, he had his mind on this thing from before Yom Tov. So then there's not going to be a prohibition of muktzah there involved. But if it wasn't, right, his intention from yesterday, so he didn't think about it, right? That's the whole, you don't have to say anything. Right? You don't need a verbal declaration over here. You just have to think about it. I will use this item on Yom Tov, right? So since the Rama says, right, that if he thought about it to use it, it's okay. But if it did not, right, not allowed to, he says, not allowed to use it because it's muktzah. The truth is, you know, that the Shulchan Aruch didn't paskin this way. So, you know, the question is, right, is this the halacha or not? Right, so for sure it seems like the Ashkenazim, they're gonna be stringent like this opinion. But I don't think the Sephardim will be so stringent with this like this. You know, regarding the issue of muktzah, because it really wasn't mentioned, you know, in the Shulchan Aruch or Bet Yosef. Okay, you know what? Bezrat Hashem, what we'll do is next time, right? We'll go over this halacha one more time, you know, to make sure we understand. There are some issues here, you know, that need to be sorted out a little bit, so we can get a better idea of exactly what's going on. Okay, so Bnei Neder, we'll try to review this tomorrow. At least the Ramah, right, which really needs to be understood what he's talking about here. Okay, very good. So Bezrat Hashem, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Chazak Baruch, Laila Tov, and stay in good spirits.
Kavod Harav, thank you so much.
All the best.
Good night.
Thank you.
Too.